Right, so it's a Tuesday. One of those grim, gray, can't-be-arsed kind of Tuesdays, where even the sky looks like it's ready to pack it in. I'm in Tesco of all places, doing what I like to call functional breakdown shopping, which is basically when you pretend you've got your life together by buying actual ingredients, but you know full well it's all going to expire while you cry into a mug of wine and microwave a jacket potato. Trolley's half full of emotional support snacks. You know, the essentials. Jaffa cakes, crisps, and that one suspicious bag of kale. I'll never touch but buy for the illusion of health. I'm trying to avoid eye contact with the general public because, frankly, I'm not emotionally available for small. Talk with a pensioner over the broccoli again. Not today, Susan, not today. Anyway, I'm queuing, which, let's be honest, is the closest thing we've got to community bonding in this country. And I feel it. That prickly back-of-the-neck feeling, like someone staring at you with the intensity of a Deliveroo. Driver watching the Just Eat van nick his spot. I glance up, and lo and bloody behold, there she is. This older woman, late 60s, early 70s, that proper knows how to make a Victoria sponge from scratch vibe. Twin set, scarf expression like she's seen a ghost. And the ghost is me. She's just staring. Not politely. Not in that, oh, I think I know her from somewhere way. No. This is full on, unblinking. EastEnders Christmas special. You murdered my son level staring. I'm there holding a multi-pack of Quavers. Like it's going to shield me from judgment. Now, at this point, any normal human would say something. You know, like, sorry, love. Didn't mean to stare. Or, you remind me of someone I used to know. The usual awkward British apology dance. But no, she says nothing. Just stares like I'm about to reveal myself as a long-lost heiress to the B&Q empire. And I'm trying not to panic because I've read enough Reddit threads to know this is how horror stories start. I'm waiting for her to open her mouth and say, "You've been dead for 10 years," or something equally soul-shattering. Instead, she does the one thing that terrifies every British person more than confrontation, more than spiders in the loo, more than accidentally waving at someone who wasn't waving at you. She smiles. At me. Directly. Like we've got a shared past and a dark family. Secret, and she's finally tracked me. Down to deliver the final plot twist. So there I am in Tesco, holding bruised bananas and generational trauma, being stared at by a woman who clearly knows something. I don't. And all I can think is, if this ends with me being adopted by the Illuminati, I'm going to need a stronger Merlot. And that's when she opens her mouth, finally, and says something that makes my stomach do an Irish jig. And my brain consider unplugging itself altogether. But we'll get to that. Because first, I had to smile back, like a mug. Right, so now we're past the bit where she's clocked me and smiled like I just crawled out of a family photo. Album she burned in 2002, and I'm thinking, maybe it was just a moment. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe this is just how my brain punishes me for not drinking enough water and eating Weetabix dry at 2 a.m. Spoiler, it wasn't in my head. She's still looking. But not just like glancing or doing that polite British, oh, I think I know her from somewhere, but I'll pretend. I don't in case it's awkward thing. No, this is intense. Like X-Files meets EastEnders intense. She's staring at me like the cashiers, about to scan my spleen, and she wants first dibs. Full-on soul scanning me. Eyeballs doing the forensic sweep. Like she's trying to carbon date my trauma through sheer force of will. You know when someone looks at you like they're about to accuse you of murder, but also maybe knit you a cardigan? That. And I'm standing there like a lemon in a hoodie, clutching a meal deal, and 3 varieties of cheese like it's emotional armor. And I can feel myself spiraling, right? Like the internal monologue has entered panic bingo territory. I'm mentally going through every possible reason this woman might be giving me the Voldemort stare. Did I accidentally match with her grandson on Tinder? Wouldn't be the first time I flirted with someone only to find out we share a family GP. Did I knock her over with a trolley once during the reduced section stampede? Entirely possible. Did I, in some sort of past life, push her into a canal and now she's come back as some kind of revenge nan? Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't put it past the universe. And I'm trying to act normal. You know, that very specific kind of British normal, where you're clearly panicking inside but on the outside. You're just mildly blinking and occasionally rechecking your receipt like you're being overcharged for your trauma. I even do that thing where you sort of half smile at someone to acknowledge the awkwardness, but also to subtly scream, "Please stop looking at me before I evaporate into the floor tiles." She doesn't stop. If anything, she looks more convinced, like I'm some long-lost jigsaw. Piece she's been trying to ram into a corner since the late 90s. And that's when I start wondering if this is some elaborate sting operation. You know, like maybe I'm part of a prank show, or I've been mistaken for someone on Crime Watch. Wouldn't be the first time I got accused of shoplifting just because I've got a guilty face and walk like I owe God money. The thing is, I could have just left. I could have just picked up my battered dignity, paid for my overpriced grapes, and shuffled off into the afternoon drizzle like the emotionally avoidant adult I am. But no, I stayed. I stayed and I stared back, like a weirdo, because some part of me, the bit that still romanticizes chaos like it's a personality trait, thought, yeah, let's see how far this goes. Because when a woman with a Marks and Spencer's tote bag starts looking at you like she's cracked the day, Vinci Code and you're the final clue, you don't leave. You lean in. You wait. You let the madness unfold. And oh, did it unfold all? And then she speaks. Now, when I say speaks, I don't mean casual Tesco chit-chat like, oh, those are on offer, or nice weather for ducks. No, she goes full cryptic Victorian ghost story and hits me with, you look just like my niece. Right, cheers for that. Honestly, I nearly clapped. I mean, well done, Sandra. You've just said the single most cursed sentence one human can say to another in the dairy aisle. No build-up, no hello, no attempt at easing in gently. Just boom. You look like someone I know who may or may not be haunting you as we speak. And look, I try to be a decent person, yeah? I try to smile at old ladies and help them reach the top shelf and not automatically assume everyone over 60 is a secret cult leader. But there's something deeply unsettling about being told you resemble a mystery relative by someone who looks like she's rehearsed this speech in a mirror since the millennium bug. I manage a polite chuckle. That's strained. British, haha, please don't murder me sort of sound. And say, oh right, small world, because what else do you say when a stranger starts comparing your face to their missing family members? And then without even blinking, she says it. She vanished in 1998. I swear to God, I stopped breathing. 998, not moved abroad, not ran off with the bloke from the chip shop. Not even we lost touch after a Facebook row about Brexit. No one vanished, as in poof into thin air, like a magician's assistant with a dodgy contract and a panic disorder. And I'm stood there, mid-scan, holding a bag of cheese strings that now feel far too light to protect me from this level of psychological horror. Vanished, she says, like we're in a BBC crime drama and I'm about to uncover a blood-stained diary under aisle 7. And the thing is, she doesn't even say it sadly. No trembling lip, no dramatic sigh, just matter of fact, like she's reciting a recipe for shepherd's pie. And I'm trying so hard not to react. Just keep it together. Stay chill. Pretend this isn't the exact plot of every Netflix documentary I've watched at 2 a.m. while emotionally compromised and full of cold pizza. Inside, though, I'm spiraling. Full panic carnival. Thoughts racing. Brain doing Olympic level. Mental gymnastics trying to remember if I've got amnesia or some long-lost evil twin. Like, is this my sliding doors moment? Have I been living someone else's life this entire time? Am I actually a missing person who just thought she was awkward and lactose intolerant? Meanwhile, the cashier's still scanning my bits, completely unfazed. Which is peak British retail energy, by the way. Could have had a full seance happening at the self-checkouts and she'd still be asking if I've got a club card. Back to Ghost Auntie. She's now doing that sad smile people do in ITV dramas when they've just spotted a kid who looks exactly like their dead brother. And I want to be kind, I do. She's clearly been through something. But also, why am I suddenly the protagonist in a real-life episode of Unsolved Mysteries? I just wanted to buy hummus and get home before my emotional stability wore off. So I ask, because I'm apparently an idiot with a death wish, what was her name? And what she says next. That's when the real nightmare begins. But I'll get to that. First, I need to figure out if I'm allowed to cry behind the freezers without being asked to leave. So obviously now I'm laughing. Not in a this is funny way. No. It's the kind of laugh you do when your brain hits a blue screen and just starts throwing out random coping mechanisms like a panicked intern. You know the one, where your face is doing haha, but your soul is screaming into a paper bag. And I hear myself say dead casual, what was her name then? Like I'm hosting a bloody quiz show. Because apparently I've decided to lean in. Full drama. Full existential roulette. I mean, if I'm going to be traumatized mid-Tesco, might as well main character it, right? I'm in my tragic BBC miniseries era. 3 parts on iPlayer, narrated by Olivia Colman. And the thing is, I know I shouldn't have asked. Every fiber of my being, and by fibers, I mean the 4 anxiety-riddled brain cells I've got left, is screaming, Don't engage with the chaos. But I do, because I'm emotionally nosy and just a bit broken inside, like a knackered kettle that still sort of boils if you hit it just right. And the moment the words leave my mouth, "What was her name then?" I feel the energy shift, like something's about to drop, like the Tesco lights dimmed slightly and a violin started playing in the distance. This is the point where, if it were fiction, someone would step out from behind the special buys section and say, "This was all a social experiment." Or Ant and Dec would descend from the ceiling shouting, "You've been stitched up, love!" Spoiler, they didn't. Instead, she leans in. Just a bit. Just enough to make me flinch like she's about to whisper my national insurance number or the name of my Year 9 maths teacher. And in the calmest voice you've ever heard, like she's telling me the time or recommending a nice chutney, she says, "It was your name." Right, good, brilliant. Just what I needed, a side of identity crisis with my meal deal. Now I'm standing there, blinking, holding a bottle of Ribena like it's a weapon, thinking, right. Okay, so either I'm the long-lost niece she's been searching for since the dial-up era, or I've accidentally wandered into someone else's psychotic break. There is no third option. And let's be real, there's something uniquely British about the fact that I still, even at that moment, smiled politely. Like, oh, how lovely. My existence is potentially a missing person case. But yes, I'd love a club card receipt. Thank you so much. Also, quick side note, this woman didn't even ask if I was okay. Like, sorry, babes. I'm the one being emotionally ambushed next to the cathedral city. Where's my cup of tea and sit down? Instead, she's just looking at me like she's found the last piece of a jigsaw. She started in 1998, and now the picture's just me, stressed, slightly hungover, questioning everything I've ever known. And the worst part? A tiny traitorous part of me started to believe her. Like, what if she's right? What if I am her niece and I just forgot? What if this is some born identity situation, but make it Midlands and emotionally unavailable? Honestly, at that point, the only thing keeping me tethered to reality was the 340. I'd already invested in this meal deal, and the fact I'd parked like a goblin in a 30-minute bay, and yet I couldn't walk away, because I had to know. I had to hear what she said next. Because if someone tells you they've been searching for you since the Spice Girls were still together, you don't leg it. You stand there and ruin your day like an emotionally unregulated adult. She leans in like she's about to tell me the Queen's Wi-Fi password, and with all the dramatic flair of a woman who's waited 5 years for this exact Tesco queue moment, she says, "My name. My actual name. Not close enough for jazz. Not a, sounds a bit like it if you squint and ignore 2 syllables. No. She says my full government-issued passport has this printed on it name. The same name I hated in year 8, because it didn't fit on the SATs form properly. That name. And I dropped my apples. Like some tragic period drama heroine fainting at the shock of it all. Except instead of corsets and candlelight, I'm in joggers that say, "Not today" on the bum and surrounded by multi-pack crisps. Felt right though. Apples hitting the linoleum in slow motion. Very cinematic. Like I owed the moment a bit of theatrical spice. Because let's be honest, if someone whispers your name, unprompted, in the middle of a Tesco, and then tells you they've been looking for you since the year Titanic came out, you're morally obligated to react like you've just remembered. You were switched at birth during a solar eclipse. Also, let's not skip over the whisper part. Why do these people always whisper? Like saying it louder might shatter the simulation we're clearly trapped in. I'm standing there, apples rolling dramatically into the reduced section, while this woman just stares like she's seen the ghost of her unresolved trauma. And somehow I am that trauma. And in that moment, honest to God, my brain does the thing. You know the thing. That full-body existential convulsion where every bad decision you've ever made, every weird coincidence, every half-remembered childhood photo suddenly starts, looking like a breadcrumb on the trail to your secret past. I'm stood there thinking, what if I'm actually her niece? What if my parents are in witness protection? What if this is some weird Tracy Beaker meets The Sixth Sense crossover episode and my life is a lie told over chicken dippers? But then another voice in my head, the louder, more sarcastic one that sounds like a tired dinner lady, pipes up with, or she's just completely mental and thinks every sad-looking woman in Tesco is her niece. Both fair assessments, frankly. And look, I wish I could tell you I handled it with grace, that I stayed calm and asked thoughtful questions and didn't panic buy 3 bottles of Echo Falls on the way out. But alas, I am but a millennial held together by sarcasm, caffeine, and childhood abandonment issues. So instead, I did what any emotionally avoidant British person would do in this situation. I laughed again. The weird shaky kind. The this'll be funny later, but right now. I'm 3 seconds from an emotional implosion in aisle 6 kind. And I just stood there, like a soggy quiche at a barbecue, completely out of place, slowly unraveling, and praying no one else was watching. Meanwhile, she's still staring at me, like I'm supposed to cry and scream, "Auntie Barbara, is that you?" and run into her arms with a swelling soundtrack in the background. But I'm not. I'm just trying to process the fact that this woman knows my name, my face, and apparently my entire pre-1998 existence better than I do. And all I bloody wanted, was a quiet Tuesday, a club card points boost, and some bloody cheese strings. Instead, I got trauma with a side of fruit spillage. So there I am, apples still rolling across the Tesco floor, like they've just been released from a hostage situation. And me? I'm standing there like a stunned extra in my own bloody life, spiraling so fast I'm basically breakdancing in the emotional trauma Olympics. My brain does what it always does in moments of stress. It sprints straight past logic, hops over reason, does a little sarcastic curtsy to rational thinking, and cannonballs into a full-blown existential crisis. Because of course it does. First thought, was I adopted? Second thought, if I was adopted, was it like a dramatic EastEnders-style baby swap, or just a quiet paperwork mix-up, involving a dodgy social worker and a distracted receptionist named Sandra? Third thought, oh my god, is this why I've always hated family barbecues? Because now that I think about it, the clues were there. No one else in the family has my nose, or my complete inability to enjoy small talk without crying internally, or my absolute refusal to eat coleslaw like it's not just wet sadness in a bowl. Then, as if summoned by some cruel internal director trying to drag out the plot, my childhood flashes before my eyes. But like, the weird bits. My mom's awkward answer when I asked where my middle name came from. The time my nan said, "You've always been a bit different, haven't you, love?" In that voice people use when they're about to announce someone's been possessed by a Victorian ghost. That one family photo where I'm the only one not wearing a matching Christmas jumper and I'm holding a Satsuma like it's a cursed object. And then, because my brain hates me and wants to keep the crisis spicy, it starts asking the big questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Is my entire life a lie fabricated by people who just really wanted someone to load the dishwasher badly and disappoint them annually on their birthday? Meanwhile, this woman's still staring at me, calm as you like she hasn't just casually cracked open the Pandora's box of my identity, right next to a self-service checkout that keeps screaming, "Unexpected item in the bagging area," like it's narrating my entire existence. And the worst part? I don't even know what's real anymore. I mean, maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe I am her long-lost niece who vanished in '98. Or maybe she just hit the nostalgia aisle too hard and I remind her of a traumatized jelly baby she once saw during the war. Either way, I'm officially questioning everything. Like, did my mum fake that story about giving birth in a hospital with no working aircon and Bewitched playing on the radio? Have I inherited any of my dad's awkward forehead, or did I just manifest it through generational disappointment? And as the apples settle, one of them gently nudging my left trainer like it's trying to comfort me, I do what any emotionally repressed British adult does in a moment of complete identity collapse. I pretend to adjust my coat. I blink very fast like a malfunctioning Alexa, and I whisper internally, "Cool, cool, cool. We're definitely not having a quiet mental breakdown next to the meal deals. That would be unhinged." Then I take a very British breath, the kind that says, "I'm not okay, but I also don't want to cause a scene." Meanwhile, a little old woman thinks she's just found her missing niece, and all I've found is the gaping void of my own fragile sense of self. Honestly, 10/10 Tesco trip. Would recommend for character development. So I'm still standing there, flanked by my traitorous apples, wondering if I've just unlocked some secret family plot twist, or if I'm about to end up on a Channel 5 documentary called "I Found My Niece at Tesco, a Tragedy in Aisle 4. And then she touches my arm. Not in the casual, "Excuse me, love, can you reach the beans?" way. No, it's the kind of slow, emotional hand touch you usually get from a dying character in a wartime drama. Full-on trembling lip, watery eyes, the whole BAFTA-worthy shebang, like she's just found the reincarnation of her favorite cat. But it's wearing mascara and holding a multi-pack of bin liners. She looks up at me like I've just resurrected her entire bloodline and goes, "You have her eyes." Right, because that's exactly what you want to hear from A stranger while you're emotionally constipated and trying to decide between lemon-scented or extra-thick black bags. You have her eyes. What am I supposed to do with that? Knit her a jumper? And look, I get it. Emotions are hard, but I'm emotionally allergic to being perceived on a normal day. And now this stranger is giving me the full long-lost relative X-Factor sob story edit, and I haven't even had my bloody meal deal yet. She starts telling me she's been looking for her niece, me, apparently since 1998. 1998. Back when we thought Smash Hits magazine was journalism and Tony Blair had hope in his eyes. And I'm just standing there, trapped, held hostage by one woman's grief and a conveyor belt of own-brand Weetabix. Because what exactly do you say to that? Oh, cheers for the emotional crisis, Sandra. Can I go pay for my bin bags now? Or do you want a DNA test right here next to the pot noodles? She keeps going, bless her. Says she's never stopped searching. That I remind her of her niece when she was young and full of fire. Which is flattering, I suppose, if being compared to a missing person with a tragic backstory is your love language. Then she starts describing her. Born in 91, left-handed, obsessed with butterflies, and used to hum Celine Dion unironically, which to be fair does sound like me at age 9. But then again, so does about 50% of the population, raised by radio to an emotional neglect. Meanwhile, I'm nodding like a passive-aggressive bobblehead, trying to figure out the etiquette of escaping an emotionally intense stranger without becoming the villain in her grief narrative. Because if I walk away now, she's telling her book club I'm heartless and possibly in a cult. Also, why is no one else intervening? Tesco staff are acting like this is business as usual. Clean up in aisle 5. Yeah, clean up my shattered identity. Kevin, I'm one compliment away from sobbing into a pack of hula hoops. And still she's clinging to my arm like she's waiting for me to dissolve into butterflies and prove her theory right. Like I'm some magical trauma. Fairy sent to heal her through the power of awkward British silence and a strong resemblance to someone emotionally unavailable. Eventually, I manage a polite, "That's mad, innit?" which is exactly the level of empathy I can muster when I haven't had caffeine and I'm questioning whether my entire life is a lie sponsored by Tesco Club Card. And just as I think she's winding down, she goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" With that look, the EastEnders end of episode zoom-in look. And mate, no, I don't. But now I feel like I should. Like maybe I have seen her before. At a funeral? A dodgy family reunion? One of those garden center cafes where the toast is always too dry? It's all a bit David Lynch meets East Croydon, and I've officially reached the questioning my entire existence whilst clutching bin bags portion of my afternoon. So yeah. She doubles down. Tears. Touching. Haunting eye compliments. And I smile like a hostage in a Hallmark film. Nod like I've just suffered blunt force trauma, and wonder if this is how reincarnation works. Because if I am her niece, I've got some serious explaining to do. To her, to my alleged parents, and most importantly, to my poor neglected cheese strings. So now I've fully entered investigative mode, and by that I mean, I'm sweating profusely, my brain's doing conspiracy cartwheels, and I've just asked a crying stranger in Tesco for a surname or a postcode or literally any information that won't make me scream into a cushion later. Because if I'm going to be the main character in this woman's grief opera, I need context. I'm not playing the role of mysterious, maybe niece who vanished under tragic circumstances, without at least a vague idea of the script. I need clues, not emotionally vague riddles, plucked straight from a channel for drama starring someone who used to be in EastEnders. So I say, as gently as my panic allows, "Do you know her surname?" To which she replies, "I kid you not. Oh, it's been so long." Right, because memory loss is contagious now, apparently. Then I ask, where was she from? Thinking maybe I can triangulate this with Google Maps and my suppressed childhood trauma. She squints, gazes into the ceiling like she's waiting for divine inspiration, and goes, "Somewhere near water." I'm sorry, what is this, Cluedo? She disappeared near a large body of water after something awful happened, and her name is definitely something I can't remember right now, but you've got her aura, darling. Brilliant. My life's officially being directed by Christopher Nolan with a budget of 4 and half a pack of Kleenex. And I am trying to keep it together. But internally I'm screaming like a kettle that's been left on the hob since 2006 because all I wanted to do was buy some bin bags, eat a cheese string, and spiral in peace like any respectable British adult. Instead, I'm getting breadcrumbed through a trauma plot by a woman who may or may not think I'm her dead niece, based solely on my face, my aura, and what I can only assume is my general vibe of unresolved abandonment issues. I push again. Do you remember what happened? You said it was awful? She nods, eyes misty, and says, yes, truly awful. One of those things you never forget, except she's clearly forgotten everything about it except the emotional impact. I mean, that's great, love. I'm all for poetic vagueness. But unless your niece died in a mysterious poetic metaphor, that's not especially helpful right now. And again, no offense to her pain, but I'm not exactly emotionally waterproof myself. I grew up in the passive-aggressive version of a war zone. I once watched my dad cry over a broken kettle, and my mom called it character building. So no, Brenda, I'm not built for this level of unresolved mystery on a Wednesday afternoon with nothing but a Tesco, club card, and crippling identity confusion to guide me. Meanwhile, I'm silently mapping out whether I could actually be her niece. Did my mom ever mention a long-lost sibling? Is that why she goes weird every time Crime Watch is on? Was there a year we didn't do Christmas because of circumstances? Has my entire life been a work of tragic fiction sponsored by Lidl? I start imagining the headlines. Woman discovers true identity midway through shop, thanks to Tesco profit. And underneath, cheese strings and generational trauma on offer, 3 for $2. So I do what any emotionally stable British person would do in that moment. I nod, make a small hum noise, and say, well, that is mental, because that's what we do, isn't it? When we don't know what to say, when we're spiraling internally but want to seem calm externally, we say mental, like it's punctuation. And she just nods back like we've had a profound spiritual exchange, and not a full-blown identity crisis in front of the reduced section. And just like that, no surname, no town, no year, no crime, no clarity. Only tears, vibes, and vague references to a niece who vanished after something awful. Which, quite frankly, is my brand now too. And then, because clearly this day hadn't been bizarre enough, she just leaves. No warning, no closure, no Facebook for follow-up trauma correspondence. Just a misty-eyed, it's enough to see you're safe, like she's the tragic lead in a wartime film, where everyone dies but at least love prevailed. Then she turns around and drifts off through the Tesco, automatic doors like she's being gently summoned by the spirits of unresolved grief and cheap petrol. Didn't even buy anything. Not a single carrier bag. Just floated off into the car park, like some Victorian ghost aunt who'd taken human form for 5 emotionally devastating minutes. Honestly, the audacity. I stood there, in the middle of Tesco's cleaning products aisle, surrounded by bruised pink ladies, clutching my bin bags like they were the last tether to my previously stable-ish identity. And all I could think was, is this normal? Is this what happens now? You pop in for surface wipes and end up questioning whether your entire life is a long-lost subplot from an ITV crime doc. There was no follow-up. No dramatic, wait, I remember moment. Just gone. Vanished. Like she'd fulfilled some tragic emotional prophecy and now had to return to her dimension of unresolved mysteries and missing persons. Reports from 1998. And I stood there like an absolute mug. Like a confused coleslaw at a family BBQ no one really wanted to host. My apples were rolling off down the aisle like they'd also had enough of this nonsense. My trust issues updated themselves to version 6.3.2, and somewhere deep inside my brain, a small voice whispered, "You're not okay, babes." Not even a little bit. I mean, who does that? Who drops a full existential bomb on a stranger and then leaves like they're boarding the last train to Narnia? Who says you have her eyes? She vanished mysteriously. Here's your name that I somehow know, and then sachets into the abyss like she's just finished, her haunting shift and clocked out. It was giving. Ghost of Christmas Past meets Broadchurch Extra. Mamma Mia, but no music, just unresolved trauma. And a bit of, if you tell anyone this, they'll think you've lost the absolute plot vibes. And the worst part? No one else in the shop even noticed. No concerned looks, no dramatic slow claps. Just a pensioner aggressively shaking, a bottle of bleach behind me, and someone arguing with the self-checkout about a multi-pack of crisps. I was left standing there like some half-solved Rubik's Cube of a human, internally screaming. Was she real? Am I real? Is this just anxiety in a trench coat again? Eventually, because there's no emergency hotline for possibly met a ghost who knows my legal name. Moments. I did what every emotionally unhinged British person does after something inexplicable. I picked up my apples, pretended like I hadn't just met a cryptic time-traveling relative, and paid for my shopping, because therapy's expensive, and bin bags don't buy themselves. So now, obviously, I can't bloody sleep. I'm lying in bed, fully horizontal. Heart doing the Macarena, mind doing that fun thing where it plays every possible scenario on loop like a trauma-themed Spotify playlist. Thanks, brain. Love that for me. I've got my phone held inches from my face. Classic insomniac gremlin posture. Googling things like missing persons. 1998 brown eyes Tesco adjacent. And can you be accidentally adopted and just not know? Spoiler, the internet is not helpful. Unless you're into Reddit conspiracy theories or BuzzFeed quizzes titled, "What type of missing child are you?" In which case, congrats. I'm apparently the emotionally volatile but lovable one. Classic. Meanwhile, I've dug out a shoebox of baby photos from under my bed, and I'm staring at them like I'm trying to solve a cold case. I've become my own detective, except I have zero training, a GCSE in drama, and a sleep schedule that screams feral Victorian chimney boy. I'm holding this photo of me aged about 2, sat in a paddling pool, absolutely traumatizing a cornetto. And I'm like, is this even me? I mean, sure, I recognize the chaotic energy, but what if I'm not who I think I am? What if I'm adopted? What if I'm a clone? What if I'm part of some covert government experiment and the woman from Tesco was trying to rescue me from a simulation that's going increasingly tits up? I spiral. Properly spiral. Full corkscrew. No seatbelt. Then I think maybe she was just some poor old soul with a touch of dementia and a lot of feelings she needed to project onto the nearest sad-looking adult clutching bin bags. Maybe she watches Call the Midwife, cries at pigeons, and decided I was her redemption arc. But also, she knew my name. Not close. Not a misheard Sharon when I sneezed. She said my full actual council tax-paying on my NHS records name. How do you explain that? Like, am I the problem? Am I unknowingly famous in some very specific, very niche crime-solving Facebook group for missing toddlers with emotional baggage and strong opinions on Watsits? And to top it all off, because life is cruel and unrelenting, I never even got my bloody cheese strings. Yep, went to Tesco for bin bags and calcium-based snacks. Left with an identity crisis and a permanent dent in my ability to trust people who make prolonged eye contact in public. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Lying in bed, questioning everything, surrounded by baby photos, Wikipedia tabs, and a stomach that's still waiting for the joy of stringy cheese. Cheers, mystery woman. Hope you're well. Hope your ghost niece finds you. And I hope, deep down, you realize you absolutely ruined my Tesco trip and possibly my entire understanding of reality. No pressure, though.